Welcome to day number 161 live. I'm Eric Rhodes, and my guest today is Shuang Li. Hello, Shuang.
Hello.
Tell everybody where you are right now.
I'm in the San Diego County, California, a little bit inland. So here's pretty warm, but today's not bad. It's in the 80s.
Yeah, in the 80s. Well, that's all right. Well, it's cold here. I actually have my jacket on. I just got back from town. I went into town this morning for an appointment, and of course I have to come across the lake because we are a boat access only. So I've got my flannel shirt, I've got my warm jacket, and so feels like September.
Very different September here and where you are. Yeah, so after my video was published, I got quite a few contacts about how I do things when I showed in video. One thing I talk about was a sure mark, how you want to overcome your fear and then put a sure mark in as a watercolor painter. So people say, we don't know how to do this. Can you show us, because we never thought the way you hold the brush, or can you teach us Chinese calligraphy so we can do the brush stroke like yours? Actually, then finally I realized that is about brushwork. For some reason, it's hardly talked about among the watercolor artists. We do talk a lot about techniques, washes and the splash and the salt and then everything else. So I thought I'll take today's opportunity and talk a little bit about the brushwork and how I do it. So we'll do a little demo about how I actually do this. You don't need a Chinese calligraphy or any those things to be a watercolor artist.
All right, excellent. All right, so I'm gonna slip away and do just a couple of announcements, and then I'll be back with you in a minute. All right. So folks, It's going to be fun. We're going to get to watch Shuang Li paint. So we'll see you in a minute. All right. Well, I'm Eric Rhodes, publisher of Fine Art Connoisseur and Plein Air magazines. We also do newsletters, Fine Art Today, Plein Air Today, Realism Today, and American Watercolor. I almost said watercolor today. A lot of people are asking me all the time, you keep talking about stuff that you do. Where can we find it all? Well, we do so much, and we have more on the more in the plan. But everything from newsletters to products to videos to art instruction videos. We have a TV channel now on Amazon, YouTube, Roku, called PaintTube. We have all these different websites. I don't even have them all listed here. We have a Russia trip. We have the Adirondack trip. We have the Fall Color Week, which is taking place this year. The magazines, the newsletters, the books, the marketing, art marketing in a box, so many other things. So you can find it all at streamlinepublishing.com. That's my business, streamlinepublishing.com, and hit /everything. If you do that, that's where you find everything. And if you want to sign up to be on our email list, you can do that there. And that'll give you an opportunity to get the emails that we send out, because we send out a lot of different stuff. We send a lot of emails because we have a lot of stuff. We're always launching new videos. We probably, on top of what I'm doing every day here, we're launching 30 full length, and full length sometimes is 20, 30 hours, videos, instruction videos, courses, full courses. And we select the very top artists in the world to be Streamline artists. And so we're looking for only the best, and we want to provide you with only the best. And so anyway, that you could go to everything and find out what we're doing. We also want to mention that this is new. Plein Air magazine has just now entered Michael's stores. We think we're the only art magazine in Michael's stores. They sell lots of art books, but this is Plein Air magazine. It's now in 278 stores. So we're really honored about that. If you want to check out Plein Air magazine, you haven't got one, you can go into Michael's. If you don't want to subscribe, go in, check it out. And of course, we'd appreciate the support. Also, I'm taking a group of painters to Russia. That's going to be starting Labor Day next year, a year from now. And though I hate to leave the Adirondacks anytime, there's only one place I'd go, and that's Russia. I love Russia so much. And the fall in Russia is beautiful. The people are beautiful. The scenery is beautiful. The costumes, and then of course the paintings. We've got. We're going to take you and see the originals, the original paintings from the great masters in Russia, and we're going to tour the cities. We're going to paint the cities and the old countryside. It's going to be a lot of fun. So you go to paintrussia.com to learn more about that. I'm only taking 50 people, and we don't have the pricing up yet. I've been trying to get that done, and quite frankly, it's in my inbox, and I just got to get it done. So that's my announcements for today. And now we have Shuang Li. Hello, Shuang. Welcome back.
Hello. How's the angle?
The angle is great. We're going to be able to see it pretty well. I'm going to see if I can get, yeah, I can see you a little bit now. So okay. Shuang, no, I want to see you. I want to be able to talk to you for a minute. You and I met where?
Actually, that's the little thing I wanted to use today. We met 2017 at your Full Color Week in May, which is a fantastic one.
Tell everybody about Full Color Week from your perspective.
You know, if you love paint, you don't want to see other things, just paint. That's the event you want to go. You got,
in other words, no workshop, no instruction.
And I had so much fun. One day, we all just got up and go out and paint, and then come home and eat, and then have another session somewhere if you still have energy, or you know, hear the music, play with the friends, and then go to sleep, and then it's another day. So you got a full week to do this. And it just is so much fun. I just couldn't believe it. I'm so glad I went.
Made a lot of friends too.
Yeah, met a lot of friends. And then when we come back, we still have the circle there on Facebook. And then once in a while, we still, you know, see each other. And there's so many good artists were there, pro or amateur. And I just loved the whole environment that you know, you just think about art, nothing else. You just think about paint, nothing else.
Well, it's even wonderful. As a professional, you know, who paints a lot, sometimes we don't get to paint outdoors all the time. And I'm not a professional really. I mean, I have some work in galleries, but for me to paint 5 days in a row, 2 or 3 paintings a day really makes a huge difference. By the end of that week, I'm really painting much better.
Absolutely. One day we painted from 5:30 till 6:30 p.m. Okay, 5:30 a.m. till 6:30 p.m. Right. So that's the way that if you wanted to be a serious painter, that's the way to go.
Yeah, now not everybody has to get up that early, but some people do. They want to get up and catch the sunrise. So what do you have to show me there?
So this is actually the little piece that I did when I was there. I think it's called Northeast Harbor.
Yes.
So I wanted to talk about the brushwork today. If you, even in this little piece, what I try to do is use proper brushwork for different areas and then get this painting done when it's quick, fresh, and interesting. So how do you define the brushwork? Brushwork, it's a little bit more complicated in watercolor than in oil and acrylic painting, because I paint all those and even gouache in the past. But in watercolor, I think the way you hold the brush, the way you hold a different type of a brush with different pressure or different direction, you apply that paint with different consistency. All these come to be part of the brushwork, and it's a lot more sensitive than you apply the paints on canvas or a board. So that's why I guess people, it's hard to give one conclusion, say you do this way and your brushwork will work. Here we have very soft brush strokes, and we have the razor sharp lines there, and somewhere in between, and then they use the other techniques, but it's as a one larger shape. So that's how the watercolor brushwork should be. The best master is you can take a look at John Singer Sargent's watercolor compared to his oils. It's similar, but it's full with visual energy. So, yeah, go ahead. So I wanted to use this one as a little sample.
Why don't you put it on? Can you put it on the left, because we'll be able to see it on the left? But there we go. Yeah. Well, we can't see it all, but maybe when we show you off camera a little bit more, we'll be able to see it. Good. Thank you for that.
I will move around. So there's
we have viewers from Saudi Arabia, The Hague, in the Netherlands, Canada.
Wow. Okay, so quickly go over about the brush types. I think I did also in my video, but a little bit, because we're going to talk about brushwork. We'll talk about. I don't care about brands that much, but I do care about the type of brushes, which is a little bit confusing in the watercolor world. So I categorize them as a natural haired brush, which mainly I use those for like a mop size, or this one is called oval, or some place called a cat tongue. So it looks like a cat's tongue. Okay, yeah. So these are natural haired, either Kaminsky or Sable or whatever. Actually, this is a synthetic, but they made this so soft that you cannot even tell. So those the ones that holds a lot of liquids.
Yeah.
Okay. So I use those for the softer textures. To do this, not just only wash. But my main body of the brushes I use synthetic round brush. So these are mainly not called round. It's called a mop or something else. But I use these as the synthetic one. I'll pick it up. Synthetic brush.
Are those synthetic watercolor brushes?
Yeah, this actually is categorized as a water media brush in this little red black, and this is Escoda. That's a watercolor brush. Okay, it's all very similar. That's why I'm saying you don't want to really worry about a brand. You want to worry about the texture, the way that they bounce back, or how much water and the pigments they hold in these brushes. By comparison, these hold a little less water because they're skinnier compared to these. So those I use to build my main body. Let me pick up those. So like the trees and the rocks and all these solid shapes that you want people see, these are the brushes I use to make it work. Okay, so those are like a major brushes I use.
All right.
I use one brush to do many things, not like fan brush for the leaves, or rigger brush for the twigs. I use one good brush if it has a good tip, a good size, and then I use it, twist and round, and use it sideways, and so on and so forth to create the shape, the texture, the color I want, and then I can use this way to make a very economic brush stroke, which means it's a fewer brush strokes on the paper.
All right.
So that's about the brushes, and then the third one is easy. So I use some very cheap ones and some from Michael's. So I use these just to lift. Well, you can use any other type of brushes to paint, but these are definitely doesn't really hold much paint or water. So I use those to lift the paints if I need it.
Okay.
So that's what I do. So let me do a little. So here are the paintings I've done. So you see the different brushes works here. The soft and majority, 99% of the whites are left. Basically, I painted the soft blue parts, and you see the hard edged brush work, which is use those synthetic brushes to create the shapes. Okay, so that's how things are done. Common question always asked: can you show us how to draw straight lines? But if you get it closer, it's not that straight. So I'm just creating the pattern and use the tip of a good brush, and then it gives the illusion that's very straight, which is not.
Well, and you really want your lines broken up anyway, right? Because if it's too straight, it'll draw the eye a little bit too much.
Exactly. And when you have everything else soft, this one automatically become a very straight and sharp. Just cheat on our eyes.
Yeah. Can you tell everybody what kind of paper you're using?
Okay, I normally use Arches rough or cold press. When it goes smaller, I tend to use a cold press, and today's is Arches 140-pound rough.
All right.
Okay, so now can you see the whole of this?
Can't see the whole thing, but most of it.
Okay.
That's okay. That's okay.
Okay. So I'm going to demonstrate on this one, pretty much just to show you, not exactly similar, but I'll just show you how I do those brush works. I usually start with the soft natural hair brush, and I tend to use this one a lot to do the sky and.
Can you show us your tin with your watercolors real quickly so we can at least see your palette? Or can you shove it a little bit to the closer to the edge? Okay, terrific. So do you use looks like you use tube watercolor and you squirt it in, is that right?
Yes, I use tube watercolor, and the brand I use actually is a local. It's a California made. It's a Da Vinci paint.
Okay.
Very good, but they need you probably. They do terrible marketing. So that's.
Well, maybe they'll hear you say that and they'll start doing some good marketing.
I doubt it. They have been that way for years.
Yeah.
Okay, so as I said, the brushwork you can't explore yourself. Each person tend to hold their brush different. But what I do is I start with the pigment, the mixture in my brush, and the paper is dry. So I think I want some blue sky, and then I want the rest to just look like some clouds. So this is what I would usually do. I just push this one. I usually paint a little flatter, not as this one. So you see, it's already brushwork by me. And then eventually it will become everybody's personality's signature, in those. And when that it's happening quickly, I just leave some whites and touch upon, and you see I'm using the full body of my brush, twist, and then I got this one done in no time.
What took you so long?
Took us 3 seconds. Okay, so now here is a very blue. So I'm pushing a little bit of blue in, but with each of those, it needs a fresh energy from you as an artist. So
right.
We don't want a little dab, that will ruin the watercolor. I used to paint oil and acrylic. Now, if you want me, ask me if you want to go back. I probably would say no, because you see how easy paint the whole sky with water and the watercolor. For oil, you have to paint the whole thing, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so now it's done. And this part, it doesn't really matter. We'll put the darker shape on that. Okay. And you see the brush work here is dry, wet, and somewhere in between or mixed together.
So you got a lot of different edges going on there.
Right. So that's the edge that, we don't, for some reason, I have a little problem with all hard edges watercolor painting. I admire people who can do that, but I just can't. Those edges, hard edges bothers me. I want something to be soft in there, something to be hard or has a rough texture in there. All right, so now move on to, let's see, I'm doing a little bit pulling down to the water part. Okay, so just try out. Okay, so see, okay, that's about right, and I don't want to touch the top yet.
Now your head's blocking a little of that.
Okay,
there we go.
Okay, so now so now 2 or 3 brush strokes. See how big brush. I'm just pushing it down. Okay, and then you got that, and when it's there, so this I'm using a pretty soft brush. Still, the first one as I used was a sky. You can use the other soft hair brush too. The whole reason for using soft natural hair brush here is because the texture, the nature of this water is soft. Okay, at least in this painting. So I don't want to introduce too much hard edges. So I'm just going on, connect a little bit, and this brush does the work. Little angle and a little more. Oh, too much. And here we go. And you see, I'm adding this on the go. The little brush work that's a hint of ripple in the water, but I don't want to say too much. Okay. And I skipped a little, so I decided those skip thing might be interesting. That's a part of the brushwork, so I'm just going to keep it. But you don't want too much of it because it's going to be very disruptive to the other main body of this.
Somebody in the comments says that Shuang Li is a great instructor. Well, of course she is. We only pick great instructors.
Well, of course.
Of course.
Erica tested me before. Okay, so now you see soft, and it's the contrast that you see the little sky texture there, and here is a pretty soft. Yeah. In this one, I don't want to emphasize that. Now it comes back to this part. That's the major shape. So I'm switching to my group of synthetic brushes. These brushes are a little harder. When I paint, my painting is pretty much, let's put it this way. I use my brush, look like I'm drawing. When I'm drawing, I'm actually using my pencil as a brush. So it's the same to me, okay? Okay, so I'm just looking at here. We need a lot of pigment, but not this way, okay? I wanted something to be seen. It's also dark, and I want a little bit of drier pigment. So let me mix the mixture first. So dark first, and the cool over. And in the middle, there will be some warms. So I'm going to charge some warm colors in there once I have the main shape. You see it?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm mixing something that looks very dark, but eventually, when it's put there, it's not going to appear to be that dark. And it's not a terribly mixed. I don't use a brush to do this way. It's roughly mixed, but you can still see the cool, warm, and different variations there.
Right.
Right. So we don't know right or wrong, so there is no really accuracy per se, as I said in my video. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just give a test. And here, the brush stroke starts.
Okay, you're blocking it a little bit. There we go.
Okay. I need to cut my head off.
Well, that would probably defeat the purpose.
So now, so you really, at this point, you really don't need to worry too much. I'm just putting some larger brush strokes in there. And you see I'm using my the full body of the brush. Push it down and the pressure on the paper, and it creates some interesting texture there. So I will see if I wanted to get rid of some.
I like how you'll reach into one piece of what you've already painted to pull some paint in.
Yeah. So now on the go, I'm just getting some pure color directly from my palette, and see, nice. Yeah, I'm switching my brush to be for the tipping part, to make some tip of the evergreen tree to be seen. So this way. And remember, you don't have to make it straight. And some bigger ones. All right. Now, make something. Remember, we were in full color week. It's a lot of color. So now it can charge in because it's still wet. And here's a little one. So you see, I'm using one brush. This is a size number 10 round. And I'm just using it to do various things for me. Okay. If you just use, I see many students just use the tip of the brush, and then how many brush stroke you have to do to make this shape? It's a lot. Right. So it's a better, it's much more economy and much more fresh. I do it this way. Okay. Now maybe touch. I'm bringing the whole brush body over there again. Just add water, keep some texture.
Is that the hot press paper or is that cold press paper?
It's a rough.
That's the rough, okay.
It's the rough. Well, you can use, well, I use cold press as well. So cold press is a little smoother, but I don't use a hot press. I cannot use it. Some people love it. So it depends on how your personal preference. Nothing right or wrong. Okay. Using that. So this part actually is supposed to be the land. So let's see. I can do that.
You just got a great compliment. Elaine says, Shuang Li is the perfect person to convert someone to watercolors. I might have to try it after watching her lovely demo.
Thank you. So I give up my acrylic, or well, I still paint some, but really watercolor is the thing to go. Love it. Now I'm coming to the land. Okay. Still use the side of a brush. So this is a part of the brush work. I'm using the side, but I'm anchoring the land into here. Let's change it. Different color and different value.
How do you present your work? Do you float it without a mat? Is the paper edge showing? Do you put it in frames? What do you do?
Yeah, I do both. I do both. Okay. Because some places they insist you have to have a mat. But I'm lazy, right? So I do put in. I like these mainly oil painting frames. So I'm anchoring these to make those as rocks. Okay, so I'll leave some here for later. And this is the part, and I didn't really plan well. So let's say these are some different vegetations. So you see, I'm just softening out. There we go. Done in 3 seconds.
What took you so long?
Why it took me so long to do it? 1 year in a plein air competition, I had a lot of oil painting buddies. We were painting this similar thing at one location. So after I finished the three pretty good size, 12 by 18 size, they were still working on like a 6 by 8. It's like, hey, what's wrong with you? Oh, you should paint a watercolor. So fast.
Somebody
Okay,
asked,
so
do you coat the finished product with wax?
No, I don't do it because I just find that those are tedious work. And again, the watercolor organization, there are so many places they don't like you to do wax. They don't like you to do this and that. So it becomes like so much headache.
Keep track of. But you do a lot of painting on location, outdoors.
Yes, right. It's also a hassle if you think you're doing the plein air painting outdoors, and especially in the composition and competition, then you have to wax your painting. No way you can do it. Okay, so I'm adding some suggested rocks here, and you see I use the side way of my brush, push it down, and leave some. I'm adding some darkness in there. Don't know whether it's right or wrong, but I don't really care. Okay, but you see the edges of this, and the way I push my brush down to make this brush work happen, make it suggestive rocks. Okay, and by the way, the rocks are not always brown. Okay, sometimes you can even paint pink rocks. It still work.
How do you protect your work? If you're putting it in a plein air frame, do you put it in glass or do you do something else?
I put in, if allowed, I put in non-reflective pixel glass with a spacer if there's no mat.
I see. Okay. New Zealand is watching. Hello, Hazel in New Zealand.
Hello.
Well, Shuang, you're going to get invitations to all over the world after this, you know.
Thank you.
Between YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, everything, we're getting about total of 5,000 views a day on average. So by the time the replays, so no pressure.
So I'm now switching to the tip, okay, to add a little bit of a vertical lines, just to pretend that those are tree trunks. So nothing about accuracy, but if you can convince people with your brushwork, that's how everything goes.
Yeah.
Okay. So now you see we got 80% of these done. Nothing is accurate. Nothing is totally straight, but the shapes are there. And I used entirely for this whole group. I used the entirely one brush, size 10, but it just twists and turns. So that's how I like to do. Keep everything fresh, and sometimes it's a little bit rough, but I think all people came to me, they always ask, how can I paint loose? Nobody said, can you teach me how to paint tight? So that's already said that we don't need tightness. So
I think that I don't know if this is, I don't want to make a blanket statement, but I think oftentimes we start out thinking tight is the way we want to paint because we have these perceptions that it's about making something that represents the photograph. And I think it takes us a while to get away from that and realize how much different it can be and more pleasing in some ways. I mean, there are a lot of tight painters I love, and there's also a lot of loose painters I love. I like to do both.
Yeah, you know, the painting something look like something. I guess that's how we all start. You know, learning how to paint. So that time, you know, the brushwork is afterthought. But afterwards, when you come to a certain stage, then you realize the good brushwork actually makes your painting not only fresh, but eventually that's how you build your personal style. And that's the next stage of a painting. Okay, so
do you ever use a spritz, you know, spray of water on your paintings like this?
sometimes I do if it's painting outdoors that's too dry. Where I live is a little bit inland of, it's 30 minutes from ocean, but can get zero humidity during certain seasons. So I do spray.
Yeah. Somebody's
But I know
asking that there's now a lot of watercolor artists who are using a UV coating and then just putting it in a plein air frame. Do you ever do that, or how do you feel about it?
I don't do it. It's the same reason. And then there will people think about it. Okay, whatever you put on, it changes the character of watercolor. It become because you put a chemical on it, and there's they categorize that into something. I thought all these are. I pretty much don't listen to those, but I just don't like. I like to concentrate on painting itself instead of using chemicals. That's my attitude.
I got people watching from France and from England now.
Wow. Okay, so now I think I just realized I missed something. So you see the back here?
Yeah.
I was thinking that one. So that should be first time put it in there, but I'll add a little bit. So you see I'm back to my soft haired brush, the little mark. So now, because I don't need the background to jump out, so I'm just putting something in there. And
beautiful.
Now it's there. Yeah. Otherwise, it's not connected, right? So a little bit more when it's still wet. And then you see at this stage, you can, when it's soft, you wanted to make sure it's soft, but it's not a boringly soft as a one color. You always have something in there. Maybe there's a little there. And you can use
that horizon line. It looks like it wants to drip, but it's kind of holding itself there.
Yeah, so hopefully it will stay, but it's even drip. Don't worry about it. This is why I said in my video, say fearless. Even if it's a drop, you just use tissue to stop it. But most of the time, it will beautifully dry over there and form something that it's not a painted. It's a wonderful, the foothill or whatever in the distance. Right. Looks like you spend hours painting that. So that's the beauty of a watercolor. It's all painting by itself and creating some magic. Yeah. So now I see the only thing left is there in the original painting there is a jetty. I guess I can just do that with a little smaller brush. We can go with size 6 or size 8. I can use size 8. So the good thing about these synthetic brush is you see how long and sharp these are. Yeah. That's my pick for a good brush. So I just making some.
For you. Since you're putting tube paint in your palette, do you put it out fresh each time, or do you let it dry and then keep using it?
Okay, I don't let it dry. So the secret of this is, okay, folks, put lots of paint in there. Okay, you see how full these? Of course, I added some. Okay, don't just be frugal. Put a little bit in there. It's going to evaporate and dry a lot faster. So put a lot in, sit there, and I have this thing dirty. Sorry, this is a piece of sponge. I used it for my painting to get rid of excessive water. And this one holds water. When it's in the palette, it keeps the paints moist. So that's two things. Okay, so now it's fearless straight line. No, there's no straight line. So it's this. So you see the brush work I'm doing just very, and that's me. It's just like your, credit card signing signature. I'm just doing this for the sake of a variety and then make something more interesting within there. And that's time you can, add a little reflection underneath it. See, all use the tip, darker paints, and 1, 2, don't do this, okay? If you hold the brush this way, try to draw a line, it's just look awful, okay? Loosen it up, use the tip, and then use that. And this is, we may not need this, but it's the time to finish up. Okay, so now the last thing, we're almost over, right?
Yep.
The last thing I wanted to just show you, the third category of the brush, okay, is these. If you want some highlights, let's say in here, I need 1 or 2. So that's how I do it. Get it wet, dry it up, use the sideways to get.
So you're pulling paint out. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. I don't use these to paint, but the cheaper, the better. Well, not really. I bought it from Michael's. That I think it's something like $8. You get 10 different brushes in size, all flat. Okay. So that's the way to do it. Well, of course, sometimes I use my finger. Sorry, not really ladies' behavior, but you can use. You can do this lifting on the rocks if it's dark enough. But remember, when it's even lifting, it's also the brush work. So try to be sure. Do a sure mark. You see, everything here is a sure mark instead of tapping or wishy-washy. So that's pretty much it about the brush work. So I would say explore, find your own sets of brushwork and then put onto your watercolor, see how it works, and watch my video.
All right. Well, why don't you come back on screen so we can see you?
All right.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
Okay.
great. All right. Well, this has been fascinating. Everybody's loving this. Come over a little bit closer because I can't see you.
Okay.
There we go. There we go. Good. Yeah. So applause and thumbs up. Shuang Li, you did awesome today.